Well, I know where I'd like to begin, and I suspect you have a good idea as to what it is. Poland, being a member of NATO, has been closely watching what President Trump has been saying and threatening with regard to Greenland. And the European Union is, as we speak, trying to make a decision about how to respond. We understand that President Macron would like to respond with force, to invoke the European Union's anti-coercion measures, perhaps the strongest economic instrument that it has available, and that the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is not so certain, perhaps wavering. What would you like to see the European Union do? What should it do?
You know, first and most important element is NATO unity. This is a difficult situation we have now, but I believe that that this is kind of political game, and I hope that there is no possibility for any military actions around Greenland. Of course, I always hope, because you never know what really would happen. Yes, but I don't believe that there is any possibility of any military action, especially if you really look at what President Trump has been saying since the beginning of his second term in office. Yes, and of course he is he is interested in Greenland. Yes, because because this is strategic place from this military point of view, also from the point of view of the security and the potential defense of the United States of America. So this is so having kind of control over this territory is in the interest of the United States and American
obvious.
Citizens, in his opinion. Yes, but if you look at his statements, he rather says about some kind of transaction concerning this territory, about some purchasing. Yes.
Well, it's easier to buy than it is to take by force. But if I'm not mistaken, he himself has talked, if not in person, on X or Truth Social, about invading Greenland. Is that just an empty threat?
You know, this is in my opinion very difficult to get, yes, and very difficult to accept. But this for especially for politicians. But this is some kind of tricks in negotiations.
It's just a negotiating tactic.
In my opinion, President Trump treats this process as a process of negotiations concerning this territory and who will really control this territory.
Okay, if that's the case, and these are just negotiating tactics, deal making, as it were. How do you see things unfolding? The president has said he's going to, it's not a threat, he said he's going to impose 10% tariffs on 8 European countries, including the UK, as of February the 1st, rising over the next several months to 25%. Is that too a negotiating tactic? And if he were to go ahead and do that, and the European Union chooses to respond with these anti-coercion measures, where does it end? That's just a game of escalation. We saw, there was a game of escalation last year after Liberation Day, and fortunately cooler heads prevailed, and the tariffs that President Trump had initially threatened were dramatically scaled back, even for China. Is that what's going to happen again? What some people like to refer to as a taco, or, you know, whatever term you choose. Is that where this is going, or is it going to escalate and then result in a less pleasant outcome? Let's put it that way.
You know, if you look at this situation from the interest of Poland.
Yes.
I'm not a president of Poland anymore. This is not.
But you were recently.
Yes, I was. But I'm not a president of Poland anymore. Now we have Karol Nawrocki in office, and this is his responsibility, and it would be probably his decisions if there is a situation that he will have to make some decisions over this problem. But in my opinion, yes, this is very harsh tactic of negotiations.
You don't
yes,
feel
all these announcements about possible tariffs, etc., etc., some suggestions about the military intervention. Yes, this is very, very harsh method of the negotiations. Yeah.
What ultimately?
This is my interpretation. This is my humble opinion. You know, I talked with President Trump a lot. So during my both terms in office in the presidential palace in Warsaw, especially we had a lot of meetings in his during his first term in office. I had 4 official visits in the White House during this his first 4 years of his presidency, and so I talked with him a lot, and I know this language.
So how should European leaders respond? Should they, fight fire with fire, talk tough, act tough, as Macron is suggesting? What should they do?
So my advice would be tough, but take it easy. But be tough.
With all due respect, Your Excellency, that doesn't really make sense.
You know, I am in heart, I am a Democrat. So if you ask me, what about Greenland? I always say, excuse me, but what about people in Greenland? What about Greenlanders? What is their opinion? Maybe we should ask them what they want, what they really want.
Are you suggesting they have a referendum?
It's possible, yeah. This is the democratic way of making decision. So this is the this is the question.
This is a question of national self-determination.
Believe me, I am a citizen. I am a patriot of the one of in Europe quite big, but in general not very big countries. Yes, and I was born in the Soviet sphere of influences, and I spent my first 18 years. 18, 17, first years of my life under the communist regime. So believe me, I really believe in democracy, and I really want to know what they want in Greenland, because first and foremost we should ask them. And I'm a little bit, disgusted when I hear these discussions concerning the island and the territory. Who would be stronger? Is it European? Is it Danish? Is it American? Sorry, this is Greenland, and there are citizens of this territory, of this country, and they should decide what about it and who is their ally and what kind of military bases they would like to have in their country and why.
Does that not legitimize a certain kind of behavior? For example, let's say the Spaniards, fancied having Puerto Rico back. Should they just put it to a vote in Puerto Rico? Would you like to go become part of Spain? And not only would you like to become part of Spain, Spain is offering you a significant amount of money to become part of Spain. I mean, I know it sounds a little absurd, but you can see this kind of thing devolving into a little bit of nonsense internationally, no?
In my opinion, this is there is a lot of factors around, but because this is also this very serious factor of the security, yes, that this territory of the Arctic, yes, is
it's covered by NATO.
Of course, but you have a lot of Russian military forces and Chinese military forces, submarines and others around. Yes,
this is true, but it seems the Danes seem very willing to accept the idea that we should have a much bigger U.S. military presence in Greenland.
Also, these submarines equipped in nuclear missiles. Yes. So this is very sensitive issue, and it's difficult to compare it to the situation in Puerto Rico or the situation in Poland, for example. Now, yes, different situation.
Well, let's talk about Poland then for a moment. Again, we all have been listening, watching, observing President Trump's actions in his second term. We know what he did recently in Venezuela. We know what the Trump administration has said as part of its new national security strategy. We now know about the so-called Donroe Doctrine, asserting a sphere of influence over the Western Hemisphere and prioritizing hemispheric security. Does that action in Venezuela, does the potential action in Cuba, does this potential action in Greenland, again, to use the same term that I used moments ago, not legitimize a certain kind of behavior if American unilateralism gives license to other superpowers to behave in a unilateral way? Does that not excuse, in a manner of speaking, Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine? Would it not similarly excuse Vladimir Putin from steamrolling over the rest of Ukraine and perhaps across Polish borders?
But this is not a new situation. I'm talking about Venezuela, yes?
Well, this is American unilateralism is a relatively...
This is not a new situation. We saw the situation in Iraq with Saddam Hussein.
Sure.
Yes, we saw the situation in Libya with Gaddafi.
I mean, there's a long catalog of American misadventures overseas.
Not only American. So, first, we should ask, had been Mr. Maduro officially recognized head of the state in this international political environment?
Oh, I think I understand where you're
going.
Because he was an illegitimate leader.
He was
defrauded the Venezuelans out of their election result.
He was illegitimate.
Well, hey, so that makes him
leader and
makes him fair game.
And he had that was an authoritarian regime. Yes, we can call this kind of authority these words. So this is very special situation. There are two elements, of course. One is the clear interest of the United States of America. This clear interest is to stop drug supplies from Venezuela to the United States. You probably remember that Mr. Maduro was accused by Americans of his participation in the drug cartels.
Sure.
Also, this 15 years ago, yeah. So that was not that's not a new story, yes.
But let's bring it back to Poland for a moment. Does this new hemispheric assertion that Trump is making not effectively carve up the world into spheres of superpower
One moment,
influence?
but the second element, very important, is of course this huge game Donald Trump plays now with Kremlin, with Putin, also regarding
Ukraine.
Yes, Ukraine. Yes, because this is also the question of Russian of the economic situation in Russia. You know that Russia finances its war in Ukraine from its natural resources.
Sure, oil sales.
Oil, yes. So if you take into account how big are reserves of oil in Venezuela, this is 1/5 of the reserves in the earth, yes. As I remember, 303 billion barrels, yes. So if you add it to the American reserves and American energy potential, it's a huge and a very strong power together, and it probably could have a terrible impact on the energy market. Yes, so also impact for the energy prices, oil prices especially, and also, in my opinion, natural gas.
Since you brought it up, I'm going to ask one last question of you, which is about Ukraine.
Yeah.
Something of great interest to Poland. Should Volodymyr Zelensky accept what appear to be terms of a peace agreement as negotiated up till now between President Trump and President Putin and, of course, their emissaries? Should he give away a significant percentage of Ukrainian territory in exchange for what appear to be uncertain security commitments on behalf of the United States?
Taking into account in a meaning Poland, yes, my Polish, very difficult history, especially the result of the Second World War, when we Poles were left in the Soviet zone of influence by our allies, Western allies. We fought with them shoulder to shoulder, yes, against Nazi Germans, and they left us in the Soviet sphere of influences. The most important element now is that Volodymyr Zelensky should be present in any negotiations concerning Ukraine and a peace solution for Ukraine. So he should be at the table everywhere where this table is organized. This is most important element, and this is because the result of the negotiations, this is also his responsibility as the democratically elected president of the country. So this is his responsibility, and he should be present involved in any kind of negotiations concerning his country. This is most important element. Most important element.
Well,
nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine.
it's not his choice, is it?
So this is the questions of a rule-based order. If the order is really rules-based, he would be at the table. Because this is one of the rules. Nothing about him without him.
Well, the rules are all in question, as Prime Minister Carney reminded us yesterday. Your Excellency, former President of Poland, Andrzej Duda, thank you very much for joining us here at Bloomberg House.